Welcome to the Signpost Up Ahead, a Twilight Zone Recap Podcast. I'm Matt Stokes.
And I'm Patrick Perot.
That's so weird.
What's weird?
I used to know a Patrick Perot.
Yeah, was he the Patrick Perot?
I don't know. He was a fellow. We used to play stickball in front of Yeagel's ice cream parlor. Old man Gower would yell at us. Our ball ended up in front of his store, and he would, "Oh, you damn kids!" But it was all in good fun.
No kidding.
Boy, I tell you, yeah, the old neighborhood gets you thinking about old times.
Honest, it does.
It really does. Anyway,
that was 50s talk. That's what I was trying to do. No kidding, mister.
Say, no kidding, no fooling.
No fooling.
This is a Twilight Zone recap show where we go through the Twilight Zone, that classic 1960s television series. We are not experts. Patrick, way more of an expert than I am, but we're just fans. We're just celebrating what we love and sometimes don't love about this show.
Well, I have a feeling this is one that you love.
I like it. I like it. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, I got a feeling you love this.
No, I'm torn. So this is highly regarded as one of the best episodes. Time Magazine named it the 9th best episode ever. It was written by Rod Serling, one of 92 out of the 156 episodes that was written by him. But he, said that there was a lot of him personally in this episode. And I have a quote from Rod Serling.
Very often I find that within the framework of the science fiction or fantasy genre, the use of traveling back in time is a very effective way of producing contrasts, of producing a kind of a freewheeling storytelling device, which is why I used going back in time. And there's another reason, which very much relates to any discussion of creativity, is that every writer, and I don't think there are any, I can't conceive of anybody not falling into this pattern who writes, has certain special loves, certain special hang-ups, certain special preoccupations and predilections. In my case, it's a hunger to be young again, a desperate hunger to go back where it all began. And I think you'll see this as a running thread and through a lot of things that I write. And part of creativity, of course, is being able to have the capacity to convey that kind of hunger, that kind of nostalgia, that kind of bittersweet feeling to those who have never had it.
That was from a series called Writing for Television, Conversations with Rod Serling, that Rod Serling did at Ithaca College in 1972. Link where you can watch the full thing in the description. Yeah, I'm realizing nostalgia is one of the big themes of the Twilight Zone. Like I would have said, the Cold War and television and, all the other things that you think of with the Twilight Zone. But nostalgia is a subject for so many episodes, including the one that we did last month, 16 millimeter matinee, nostalgia for being young, and then this as well. And I think it's good. I think one of my favorite episodes is A Stop at Willoughby, which basically does this kind of exact same premise, but I think does it a lot better. But there's some interesting shit going on here with time travel. It's like what we basically say in every episode is like this show did it first. Like it laid out the rules. You can be watching TV and a guy can suddenly travel back in time for no reason. And isn't that crazy to think about?
Yeah, no, they don't have to explain things because you're in the fifth dimension. It's beyond time, space, and any logical explanation. He just walks down the street, he's back in time, and then he doesn't even leave the town to go back in the present. At the very end, he just walks back to the soda shop or the drugstore, and boom, he's back in the present. So that's really weird. But again, I don't care because they don't have to explain anything. It's Twilight Zone. That's the explanation. They're in the Twilight Zone.
Sure. But just the idea, like this is kind of a template for many types of stories that they will tell, and it being the first means like maybe if we watch it now, we think this is kind of basic. A guy goes and explores his life as a child, and it seems a little non-specific. And he's like, I wish I could tell myself that you gotta treasure the memories. Okay.
I know. That's what I wrote at the end. I was like, what does he learn? What's the point? Because I thought it was just lacking something inherently Twilight Zone for the second half, or at least the last act, the third act. And I agree. I think we're in the minority, but I agree that A Stop at Willoughby is a better version of this. It's the exact same thing. It's, hey, weren't things so much better back then, simpler times, simpler lives. Wouldn't it be great if we could just go back? But it was done so much better with the going back and forth between a dream and reality and a dream and reality. And then the dream became reality. Like, yeah, it's so much more Twilight Zone and much deeper. Whereas this is just, I'm torn about how I feel because it's so highly regarded by people, but I feel like, and this is something I talked to my dad about to see if it was a fair criticism. It's a good episode of something. It's a great episode of something. I just don't know if it's a great episode of Twilight Zone because it was never eerie or creepy or suspenseful or had a twist. It was like this wholesome, sweet episode the entire way through. Very simple too. He just walks back in time and that's it. And then he comes back.
I think it's a little eerie, and I think that this is directed by Robert Stevens, who also directed the first episode of the show, Where Is Everybody? And this is directed very similarly to that episode and creates a similar feeling of things are just a little eerie. The world is a little bit off its axis, and how weird that would be to go through. And I guess I don't think this is as strong an episode as that. And there's even a weird moment where Rod Serling does some mid-episode narration, which I feel like never happens.
Never.
And what he's saying is like, Mr. Martin Sloan kind of just walked around and now it's later at night and now he's wondering, it's like if he has to come and like try to heighten the stakes or sort of make some sort of character growth happen because we just can't figure out where this story should go, that should show you that there may not just be that much meat on the bones for what they were trying to do here.
That is a good point. I feel like he was more involved in like the mid narration because this episode was just so personal to him. Like there was so much of him in it. Like his daughter says that it's her favorite episode because I think her name's Ida. I'm not sure. But yeah, his daughter says that it's her favorite episode because there's so much of her father in it. Like it just embodies him and what his ideals, what he wanted. And so, it doesn't serve a purpose though. His mid narration, where you just, he's walking around town. And
well, I mean, by serve a purpose, you mean like thematically. The purpose it serves is like, it's like a screenwriting thing of like, we got to push this story forward. And so it's like, all right, you didn't see it, but he realized he needs to go back to his house where a better episode would have us see him kind of progress and see his understanding and see the things that he wants. We would see them actually happen rather than just be told about them.
Which I don't think is hard to do either, thematically. Like, I feel like that's really simple. But I think he just did it because he was so invested and maybe he was insecure about how it was coming across. So he wanted to make it more clear just so everybody knew. But it was apparently very, very important and personal for him to do this episode.
I would not say this episode is not deep. I think that it's very interesting to look at people's concerns at the time. This is 1959. This episode aired October 30th, 1959. And like the 50s, if you were white and if you were of a certain social and economic class, this was the golden era of America. But there are people who are like, no, fuck this. Everything's going wrong. We need to get back. And just like in 16mm Shrine, you have the irony of saying the ideal time we need to get back to is 1934. Never was it any better than when we were going through the unprecedented worldwide Great Depression. Things were so much better and easier and simpler back then. But as you see in this episode, that wasn't something that he actually encountered.
It's weird because so Penn and Teller had an episode of Bullshit about the good old days, and the good old days are bullshit. How everybody thinks that, because I'm victim to it too. Like, I wish everything stopped in 2004. Technology and whatever, everything was perfect in 2004. We don't need to go any further. We had DSL, we had T1 internet, everything was fast enough, and everybody's just obsessed with either their glory days when they were in high school and they were a jock and popular or a cheerleader or whatever. They want to go back to that time because now they're not that. Or even just me as a nerd, I want to go back to high school. So I think that's part of the reason I'm a teacher, is because I'm just so obsessed with high school and going back there and being a part of that culture, So yeah, for some reason, people always just want to go back to the past. And I feel like the message in this is good. It's because I think at the end in his closing narration, he's saying, it's okay to want to go back to the past. It's okay to want to relive those things, but realize it's just a dream and that you never will. And to take what you can with you.
And luckily, this thing called the internet doesn't exist yet, so you can't live as a perpetual baby, obsessing over the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Pokemon for the rest of your life. As this 36-year-old man, which bullshit, gig young. I looked at his age. He was 47. It's like 30. See, this guy's younger than me. Who we're seeing right here. Yes, this is, I'm sort of obsessed with this idea of the good old days has always been a construct. People have been obsessed with it. It is not new at all. My podcast, Load Bearing Beams. Everybody, please subscribe to Load Bearing Beams wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube, which I host with my wife. The premise of the show is that we look at movies that we are nostalgic about that from our past, and then see through the sober lens of the present, are they actually good? And I've come to find I'm not that nostalgic a person, and my wife Lacey very much is. And I kind of like finding out that things that I liked a long time ago suck, but almost nobody else is that way. Guests we have, people who listen to the show, they get mad when we shit on movies that they loved when they were kids. So the whole point is to try to like examine nostalgia and see, are these things really worth getting so sentimental over? But ultimately, like, it's the most trite answer, but it's John Nolan, the musician from Taking Back Sunday and Stray Light Run, had a great quote when people would ask, are you ever going to reunite Stray Light Run? And he would say, you don't miss Stray Light Run. You miss being 18. And it's like, yeah, that's it. That's all this is I don't miss, because like there are things I get nostalgic about. I miss video stores. I would, if I could seriously go back in time to Mandeville, Louisiana of 1999, yeah, I'd go to Video Biz. I'd go to Major Video. But then I think
Friendly
like,
Video.
Okay, or Friendly Video or whatever, or even the dreaded Blockbuster. Okay, then what? Then what are you gonna do? 10 minutes, I'm going to browse. Like, oh, look at the movies they have. Oh, down Periscope, they've got it. Okay, but now what?
It was so simple, though. Like, there were so many movies we watched we didn't know anything about just based on the cover. And then we read the back, and if it sold us, we'll rent that, and I was exposed to so much more back then. Like, objectively speaking, we live in the greatest time it could be to live. Right now.
I heartily disagree with that, but that's like a whole separate conversation. I think things are getting so bad and getting worse and worse all the time. Some things get better and so much else gets worse almost without us noticing. Well,
like diseases, medicine's so much more advanced, and technology is so much more advanced, and everything's just so simple, like, hey, you want to watch that movie? Boom, it's on some service right here. You don't have to go down to your Friendly Video and see if it's in stock. See if anybody else rented down Periscope for you, because there's only one copy.
But things like, people having jobs, people like having enough money, maybe people not, maybe a family only needs one income earner rather than both, two parents to be working their asses off to support a family, or even things that aren't as easily qualified or quantified. I think like smartphones objectively make our lives worse. I don't know how you can argue that they don't. I think they are bad for our mental health and the way and our attention span and the way we connect to each other. I think they're bad.
Well, and on a smaller scale, I would argue that the inconvenience made us appreciate things more. If you went to your video store to go rent Titanic, and you couldn't get Titanic because it was so big and you had to wait until it came in stock and you'd go back and then you finally got it, it made you just appreciate it more. I remember that. I remember trying to get a copy of Titanic after it got released on VHS, and you just couldn't do it. It was so hard. And I think I've told you the story before. There's a channel, I think maybe on Sling, on one of the streaming services, there's a channel where they play X-Files from 8 to 10. And they just play 2 episodes every night, and they have the commercials. And I enjoy watching it because the commercials make you enjoy the show much more. When you have an instant gratification like that, then it makes the show less enjoyable. Like when I have to sit through these shitty 3 minutes of commercials, I'm like, fuck, get back to the show. And then the show comes on. I'm so excited. And if I want to watch another one after that, I got to wait another day for the next 2 episodes to come out, and it just makes you, the anticipation makes you enjoy it so much more. You have to have a few rainy days to enjoy a sunny day. So
that's absolutely true. But I think another key element of it is there was, however small, a social element to you have to go to the video store and have a physical interaction with a human being, even if it's just here, it will cost $3. Okay, here's my money. And you have to go out into the physical world. I think the more and more our lives move to virtual, the more and more they're bad. We are hardwired as animals to require social interactions, and the world has just moved violently away from that. And it has been, since the 1950s when this episode aired. I think that there actually was in the post-war economic boom, an actual sense of malaise creeping in, of people of thinking like, is this all there is? Like things were so terrible for so long. We had the Great Depression, we had the war, and now things are good. And now people have jobs and suburbs are going up all over the place, and we have television, and yet I still feel hollow and empty. Why is that? And it's like, we just crave this thing that capitalism and consumption and achievement can't give. And it's that we just need other people. But we've built society in a way to separate ourselves from everybody else. It's very bad.
Well, surely part of it is delusion. Like, we think things were so much better 20 years ago, but was I that much happier 20 years ago? I mean, I think I was kind of not that happy during high school. I mean, I didn't have any friends. I made you be my friend. I followed you around like a shadow until you were my friend, until you accepted me. So, like, was I really that happy? Like, we only remember the good things, like when I think about drinking, because I've mostly sobered up since then, since the bad days. But when I think about when I was drinking, I only remember, the parties and hooking up with girls and the pong and the fun things about it. And, it really makes me question, though, did I have fun because I was drinking, or did I have fun in spite of the fact that I was drinking? But like I said, we only remember the good things.
No, I was around you, and you were not happy back then. You are way happy. You're in the best place I've ever seen you these days. Which is just a healthy thing to always remind yourself. And the thing that I always remind myself, again, I'm not a very nostalgic person, but I will kind of get nostalgic for like a year ago. And whenever something sucks, I will just try to remind myself, like, you're going to be like wistful about the summer of 2025 when it's, February 2026. For whatever reason, that's just the way my brain works. I'll be like, oh, even the shittiest times. They say when you have a baby, like you'll be up all night with your baby and you're going to be miserable, but a year from then you will miss this. And it's so true. That no matter how bad something is, you will eventually miss it. And it is just, we miss certainty. I know how that story ends, and it's not scary. And we miss being younger. And it's so interesting that people were preoccupied with this even back then, but also to see how the things that they were nostalgic for totally changed. Because now the things that people are totally nostalgic for, it's all brand names and it's all intellectual properties.
Whereas this was a very wholesome episode.
Yeah. And it's I'm nostalgic for the merry-go-round and the old bandstand.
Which, is a much better message to have. Like, if you were going to go back to your younger self and tell them to appreciate things, it wouldn't be the movies or the music or whatever. It would be the little things in life, just being a kid. That's what the message was. You just want to tell himself, I just want to tell you just to enjoy being a kid while you're a kid, because it's going to suck when you're an adult. Well,
do you think that the Twilight Zone agrees with him that that's a worthwhile message?
How do you mean?
Here's why I ask. I think that that's bullshit. I think that when somebody tells you, like, appreciate this right now, it doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? How am I going to appreciate it?
Yeah. No, I think, they're genuine in that message, but that the receiver won't get it. Like, if you told me to appreciate at any point in life, if your future self tells you to appreciate this while you're here, I don't think it's going to change your life in any significant way.
Will you do anything differently? Yeah. And it won't change you in the future. It won't be like, I'm glad I didn't take that for granted. It's just a thing people say.
Fuck, you know what? Maybe it did change something, because once we get into the episode, you'll see things that happen to the child self chain react into the adult self. So maybe the kid was touched by what he said and did enjoy it more, and that's why he's more pleasant. Because the episode starts off, when we get into that part, with him just being a fucking dick. He pulls into the gas station and honks his horn at least 8 times, and then just lays on. The guy's right there, and he's a fucking dick. But when he comes back from everything, he's like a nice guy, humble, a different person.
Yeah. No, you might be right that it's not just literally what he's been through over the past few hours. It's that now he's literally a different person who has lived a different life. And because he got injured, and it was a very scary injury, but it turned out he's okay. And yeah, he's like walks with a limp, but he learned he can live a normal life, but maybe just a little bit more appreciative and a little more like, I am aware that I am vulnerable. And so I need to live with gratitude. Oh, just as an addendum to what I was saying, it's not bullshit to say you should live your life with gratitude, that you should show gratitude for the things you have and the people in your life. But I feel like that's different from somebody just hollowly saying like, well, just, you better enjoy it now, kid. Which I don't think means anything.
Oh, no.
Just real quick, let's talk about this actor, Gig Young, who plays Martin Sloan, 3-time Oscar nominee, eventually won Best Supporting Actor in 1969 for Sidney Pollack's They Shoot Horses, Don't They? And then 1978, killed his wife and then himself. How about that? One of these famous Hollywood murder-suicides for Gig Young.
I didn't even bother looking into the actors because I didn't think any of them were really that famous, because I didn't think he was very good. I thought he was okay. He was adequate. I mean, Twilight Zone just get bad actors, but I thought he was just adequate. And so I didn't even look into him, other than the fact that I thought he looked like his father. And I thought that was good casting, because I think the two actors do look similar, but they're not related.
Yeah, but it's just impressive that like when they hire him, he's a 2-time Oscar nominee, and he will go on to win an Oscar, like getting Martin Balsam in the last episode. And Ida Lupino, like they get legit people, movie actors for the Twilight Zone.
Did you see the Ron Howard cameo?
Well, of course I spotted the Ron Howard. I'd spot him from across the room. I'd recognize that Howard anywhere. Oh, really?
I didn't. No, I was doing my research and it said Ron Howard as the Wilcox boy.
A little ginger motherfucker. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that was Ron Howard.
So, I mean, the episode opens with him, Martin Sloan, and as you said, he is just a miserable piece of shit. And he's driving with his top down, and the dust from the road is covering him. He's like trying in vain to get it all off him. He's trying to shake off the pains of modernity, really. And then he pulls up to a service station and he's like, do some, and the grease monkey's like, say, mister, what do you want? And he's like, give me an oil change and a lube job.
I'd have peed in his oil tank.
And Rod Serling introduces us to him. Martin Sloan, 36 years old. I'm 37. Look how youthful I am. I heard that from a reliable source that the best explanation for people aging better now is a very simple one, and it's that we drink water. And that until like 40 years ago, nobody ever drank water, which is hilarious. You just drank gin all day, and by 36, this
right?
is what you looked like. But yeah, I have my thermos with me all day.
No, if I grew up in the 50s, I'd be dead by 30.
Yeah, that'd be old. Yeah. He also has the most 1950s job ever. He's an ad executive for a corporation, and he's sick of it. He's like, I'm tired of my meetings and my phone calls.
Yeah, they make it clear that he hates it and he needs a break. That's why he's in this area in the first place. Which I thought it was weird that he wasn't intentionally trying to go to his childhood town. Like he just needed to get out of New York, so he went in a direction and stopped there. He's like, oh shit, that sign says 1.5 miles to my childhood town. I guess I'll go down there too.
Something's pulling him. Something almost supernatural. A beacon he's following.
He could have gone in any direction. He ended up there.
Right. Calling me to Homewood. That's what it's called. And he asks the gas station guy, he's like, say, Homewood, I used to live there. Haven't been back in 25 years.
Which is an interesting thing to say because he's 36. So he says he can't decide whether it's 20 or 25. And it's like, you can't remember if you left town at 11 or 16.
Either way, it's kind of fucked at age 16. Think of the 16-year-olds in your life. They're like, I'm out of here, Pops. Get lost. But yeah, he just had to get out of New York City and all of its aggravations. And hey, he'll go check out the old town. There's never a moment where they explain like, sorry, do you never talk to your parents anymore? Did they go to New York City with you? Do they still live in Homewood? And you're like, fuck them.
They could have used more exposition. I do like, well, some of the show don't tell is good. Like I think they indicate that his mother has been dead for some time by the way he reacts to her versus his father. But yeah, a little more information, backstory information would have been good.
If only because of this, I am thinking the whole time like, oh, okay, this is going to be about him realizing why he should have forgiven his parents. But no, it has nothing to do with that. Nothing at all.
That would have been so much better if they, had some resolution, some conflict and resolution, like, because we don't have any idea what this kid's childhood was like. He just goes back in time and starts seeing his childhood shit and then reacts based on that. And we don't really have any idea of what, a major event that he came to terms with would have been really good. That would have been so much better if they had created some sort of tension.
Well, and again, just because it is distracting me when he says, I haven't been to my home in 20 years at least. And so I asked, so I am naturally led to think, oh, you don't speak to your family anymore. That's the kind of story I'm going to be watching. But no, it seems like his family's great. He just misses being young. But goes to town.
Well, I can't believe you skipped over the amazing camera work that was in the gas station scene.
Oh?
Tell me about it. So he buys his cigarettes from the machine, which is awesome by itself, just a cigarette vending machine. Sure. I haven't seen one of those in 20 years at least. But the vending machine had a mirror on it. And the camera zoomed in on the mirror, reflecting him walking towards the sign and going back in town.
Oh, okay.
Did you not notice that?
I didn't, but I did notice, when we see him in the drugstore, we first see him in the mirror, which then pulls out and reveals we're looking at a mirror.
Yeah, so it goes in the mirror on the cigarette machine and reflects them. And I thought that was great because it was like indicative of him going in the fifth dimension or the mirror universe or something like that. It focuses in on the mirror reflecting him walking to the sign and into town, and then it gets the drugstore and it zooms out and he's in the other mirror. Like it's brilliant, really.
And the first episode has the famous mirror, the guy running into the mirror and crashing into it, which again was also directed by the same gentleman, Mr. Stevens.
Well, speaking of that, I feel like this is the same, like the rest of the scene or the setting is different, but I feel like this is the same backdrop as when he walked into that drugstore in the beginning and he made himself pickles. Yeah, I think it's
got to be the same drugstore set. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love one that he walks in smoking a cigarette. Like not only, because nowadays at some point, I didn't look it up, but at some point they must have made a law to make cigarettes illegal on TV because you just don't see them. One, the ads, you don't see any ads. You see a million alcohol ads, but you don't see any cigarette ads. And I think it's also legal to like smoke on screen in a TV show because you never see that either.
It's not illegal. It's not illegal.
Well, you never see it. Maybe in like 90s things, you might see it once in a while. But yeah, I love that he walked into the drugstore smoking a cigarette. I thought that was pretty badass.
Cigarette smoking rules. Everyone should do it. My wife and I just had one of our yearly date nights where we go to a casino and we're very classy. And that is the one time a year where we will smoke cigarettes. And I look forward to it, to my 3 or 4 cigarettes a year, all year. And I feel so cool and I cough and I try to hide it, but I can't.
But you know what? You were cool all along. You didn't need that, Matt. Did you not know that?
You really think so? You really think so?
Oh, yeah. I give you credit.
Oh, thank you. So
this drugstore, once they're there, he finally comes to exact year. He says it's 20 years exactly to be exact, 20 years to be exact since he's been in that drugstore in that town. And he talks about the owner, Mr. Wilson, which is an interesting name. Ron Howard was on many episodes of Dennis the Menace.
Oh, wow. Maybe that's the same guy. Maybe it's a spinoff. This poor ice cream guy, like this lunatic just walks in and starts monologuing like, oh yeah, the old place. I haven't been here. And he's just like taking shit out of the jars and just talking this guy's ear off. And the guy's just like, yeah.
Yeah, but at the end, he gave him a $1 bill for a 10-cent drink. So it's like, okay, whatever bullshit you gave me for the last 10 minutes, sure. You gave me a $1 to keep. We're good.
And it is the like frustrating thing of a story like this where you're like, how long are we going to have to endure this man not understanding
way too long
backward in time?
It's in my notes. Way too long.
Because at first he's like, so they used to give me 3 ice cream scoops for 10 cents. Can you believe that? And the guy's like, yeah, how about that? This costs 10 cents. He's like, 10 cents. And then he tips him $1 and he's like, oh, sir, you just tipped me a whole buck. But the guy,
and he can spend it in about 20 years when that dollar bill gets printed.
It's just I know this guy has not seen tons of movies where people get caught in a time warp and end up back in time. Maybe I'm giving myself too much credit for figuring out really quickly that I've traveled back in time.
Oh, I think so. No, at this point, it's okay. Later on in the episode, it's like, dude, how much shit do you have to see and hear to know that you're not in your reality? But at this point, it's okay. He just walked in the shop. The thing he ordered should be more expensive, but it's only 10 cents, and he thinks that's weird. Then he's just reminiscing about the past. And first off, I love Mr. Wilson. So he talks about how Mr. Wilson's been dead for 10 or 15 years, but he was really great. And he was always sleeping in his chair. And so after the guy leaves, the shopkeeper, he goes up to the room and talks to Mr. Wilson sleeping in his chair, wakes him up and says, hey, we need to order some chocolate syrup. And Mr. Wilson says, I'll order it this afternoon. And then goes right back to sleep. Yeah, I was like, I love this guy.
Yeah, you can't on polite television, you can't say Mr. Wilson's a drunk, but he's not a mean drunk. It's like, what? You had to wake me up for that?
Yeah.
I need to order some chocolate syrup.
I expect him to be mad, but he's just like, oh yeah, I'll order some this afternoon.
Show some initiative and order some yourself, bub. But yeah, Mr. Wilson is still alive, but we know this. Martin does not know this.
Yeah, so at least I'll give it this much credit. Is one, it's okay if he doesn't realize he's not in his time by now. I don't think there's that many clues. And two, it creates a dramatic irony where the audience knows something that the character doesn't. We know once they show Mr. Wilson alive and breathing and doing exactly what he said, sleeping in his chair and whatnot, then the audience now knows something that he doesn't, and we get to experience him going through it with our knowledge. So at least it creates that, but it goes on too long. Like it takes him way too long to figure this shit out.
So he starts like strolling down the street and he's just like, oh gosh, wow. Oh, the streets and the places and the landscape. Wow. Look at it all. Now, to be honest, I myself do this, but I do it on Google Maps. I just look at streets and stuff. But what I'm actually doing is looking for the places where murders happened. So it's just kind of a thing I do. Now, did you know, Patrick, were you aware that in December 2024, there was a murder that happened a few blocks away from where you used to live in Mandeville on Heaven's Drive?
Oh, no.
Learn all about it. Yeah. That's just a little fun thing I do. He runs into a little kid, and then, because again, this is either the 30s or the 50s, just sits down. This just giant towering stranger sits down next to the child. He's like, oh, can I play marbles with you too? And this little kid is Ron Howard. And he, starts monologuing at this kid about marbles and how swell marbles are. And then he points at the house across the street and he's like, I used to live there. And Ron Howard's like, you mean the Sloan house? And Martin says like, they call it that? Well, but my name's Martin Sloan. How can they call it that? Anyway, well, my name's Martin Sloan. What's yours? And Ron Howard is like, you're not Marty Sloan. I know Marty Sloan, and you're not him. And he runs away. And Martin chases him. He's like, Ron Howard, wait, you're going to direct the Da Vinci Code one day.
Chases a lot of little kids during this episode.
Yeah, a few too many. Yeah, doesn't draw that much attention. He goes over to the park and he's like, and he just starts monologuing at a woman. He's like, gosh, the park, it's so wonderful, And she's like, huh? Oh yeah, I suppose it is. Like, yeah, I used to love coming to this park, boy, I tell you. I inscribed my name over there in that beautiful bandstand. I vandalized it by carving my name and what? And he looks over and there's a kid carving the name Martin into the bandstand, and old Martin is like, wait a minute, that's exactly the way I looked. And then the child looks at him and is terrified and runs away, and then the adult Martin chases after him.
Which to be nice to the scene, I do think the park is awesome. And this monologue, sure, I think they're so nice in that town. It's so easy come, easy go, happy go lucky that she would listen to him for a second. But I love that it's called a bandstand, and the place seems really awesome, honestly. But yeah, no, but we get some classic 50s talk though when he's talking to the kid and he says, "Hey, you're carving your name right there," and he says, "I didn't mean nothing. Honest, lots of kids carve their name here. No kidding." And I love the honest and the no kidding at the end.
Honest. Yeah. Everybody's always insisting on their honesty. There's the thing that Walt Disney, had a Rod Serling thing where he was obsessed with his childhood, and Disneyland, he built it and built Main Street in Disneyland to be a recreation of Marceline, Missouri, which a place that he actually only lived for a few years in, but he was trying to recapture this sort of Main Street beautiful little town with a bandstand. But the thing is, I don't know what kind of town is this anyway? It's not a suburb. Were there actual towns like this that were just in the middle of nowhere that had all this stuff, that had a merry-go-round? And
the permanent merry-go-round is probably a little strange. I think a lot of towns probably had a little bandstand, a little place for concerts or shows, and they had the benches surrounding it, like the seats. I think there's a lot of less intricate places that just have like a stage and then like a stone seating. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Like surrounding it, like concert areas. Like on The Simpsons when they go to the Springfield Pops play the Star Wars greatest hits.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like
an
that.
amphitheater or
Yeah. I guess it was just a nice place. I don't know. It's all believable to me. I mean, I wouldn't know any different. I didn't research what suburbs.
It's not that it's not believable. It's just. I keep thinking I'm going to be watching a story that I'm not watching. I think it's like, oh, he's going to realize that the things he remembered turns out, oh, it's not as it's uglier than I remember. Oh, the bandstand. First, they'd be like, the bandstand. It was right over there. What? No, it's over there. And then you realize the bandstand, it wasn't as magical and it's smaller than he remembered. And maybe the town smells. I don't know. That's what I thought. That's where I thought it was going. But no, it is just as magical as his memories. It's just the conflict is you can't stay here. Get out. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler. And I think this is the part where his acting, when you said he was nominated for 3 Academy Awards and won one, I was really shocked because I thought his acting was really poor during the scene, especially when he yells, "Martin!" as the kid's running away. I thought it was all bad. And I don't know. He didn't seem confused or delighted. Yeah, he goes to the house. Go ahead.
I don't know. It didn't bother me, but there's nothing. Yeah, this performance doesn't seem remarkable in any way.
Well, and then he gets to he chases the kid himself back to the house, and he's just so stupid the whole way through. He's like, "Hey, Pop, Mom, you're here at the same time as Pop. What?" Which I guess indicates that she's dead at some point in his life. And he just plays real stupid. I'm Martin. He says, "Who are you?" "I'm Martin." "Duh, you don't recognize me? I'm only 20 years older than I was before." No more, probably. He had been there 20 years, but it's probably 30 years since he was that kid. It's like, you don't recognize me?
Yeah, I mean, presumably he's seen It's a Wonderful Life and he's gotten annoyed at Jimmy Stewart for also taking so long to finally believe that no one what do you mean, Ferrari? Or not Ferrari, the Italian guy who owns the bar. "What do you mean you don't know me? I'm George Bailey. I'm George Bailey." You have to watch that scene take place 10 straight times before he finally starts to accept that no one knows who he is. But he's like, "Come on, Mom, don't you remember me? Don't you know your own flesh and blood, son?"
And at least
you're a 49-year-old.
At least he did name a couple of facts, I got the baseball glove when I was 11, and you gave me Lou Gehrig's autographed baseball. But he nails 2 or 3 things, and then just completely stops. He's like, "That's enough, right? You remember me, huh? I'm clearly Martin. I'm not just some psycho guy who's been talking to you." No, you seem like a crazy stalker who knows way too much about my child, and you need to go right now. And then, so even after this, though, this is the part that got me. So up to this point, it's okay if he doesn't realize what's going on. But once he sees his presumably dead mother and his father, much, much younger than he should be, if he's not dead too, and his childhood self, he really should be clicking. But they slam the doors on him, and he's like, oh, well, I'll just give up then. Okay. They close the doors on me. And then the neighbor, I guess, didn't hear all the weird shit going on 15 feet away from him. Says, hey, dude, what's up? I just bought this car. And he's like, you just bought it? This is brand new, but this is so old. And at that point, I'm just like, God, you are just so stupid.
And this is the thing that finally shows him it's 1934, because he's like, look, mister, it's the first one ever made. A roadster right out of Detroit. And he looks at the car and something tells him it's a 1934 roadster. And he's like, oh my God.
So his dead mother being alive and his father being 25 years younger, that didn't click.
Doesn't mean shit. Yeah.
But the roadster just being
straight out of Detroit.
Holy shit.
So there's the act break, and then we come back with Rod Serling's narration, explaining that in between the commercial break, Martin has found some resolve. He has accepted his situation. Okay, I am in 1934, and I know what I need to do. And it's like, well, one, it's nighttime, so he's just been, what has he been doing? Just walking around, just talking to people and boring them. But he decides he's going back. I guess that's why they have to have this narration, because it's like, otherwise it's just he leaves their house and then just goes right back into it. But he goes back and he sees a bicycle and he rings the bell on the bicycle, which causes his father to come out, and he's like, you're back again, huh? And Martin is like, I had to come back, Pop. This is my house, and this is my glove. You gave it to me on my 11th birthday, and a baseball autographed by Lou Gehrig, and explains all the stuff that Patrick just mentioned, all the things to demonstrate to him, I am who I say I am. And here's the thing. Here's what I want. And maybe this is what's frustrating about this episode is what he wants should be something a little simpler. Instead, he's like, or something just a little more emotionally satisfying. He's like, I want to rest. This is my house and I deserve to get to go into it. Like, what? Okay. I mean, I don't know. But
instead, the mom slaps him and he remembers, I think, that he went to a carnival or something that night. So he just starts running to the park. And I feel like the parents should have chased him down, because he's talking all this information about their kid. They don't believe he's their kid, who's just older. And then he's like, oh, yeah, Martin's in the park right now on the merry-go-round. Let me go chase him down. And the parents just stay at home and look at his wallet, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, I like that the dad says to him, like, okay, look, I can see you're sick. I don't want you to get in any trouble. I just don't want you to, like, hang around my house. You're really kind of freaking me out. But his mom slaps him. He goes back to the park, where now the place is booming. There's a carnival. Apparently the carousel is running. But the director, Robert Stevens, is showing all of this with the canted angles, just like he does in the first episode. It's like, though, the world is coming off its axis. Well, you don't see anything straight on.
For the next 5 minutes, I think the camera work is brilliant. The shadow play is the score is brilliant. This was an original underscore written by what's his name? Bernard Herrmann.
Yeah.
So it was a 19-piece orchestra that did a score just for this episode. And the tone is always really good. It's always a really great score. It's always when he's running and they got the Dutch angle on him, and it's the music that's playing at the moment is a mix of like fantasy and peril, and horror. It works really great.
I'm glad you mentioned all of that, because what we keep saying about the thing aside from everything else that makes the show so special is just how top notch all the craft is, and that they will get a legit 19-person orchestra to record an original score for an episode of television that just was coming on to sell cereal and cigarettes to people is so beautiful. It was something that would never happen today. And Bernard Herrmann, the guy who scored Alfred Hitchcock movies like Strangers on a Train, which famously ends with a carousel chase. And this is, I'm not saying a ripoff or an homage, just you can't not think about that awesome carousel climax. But this is cool. I mean, the young Martin is on the carousel despite him being like a 12-year-old. He's on the carousel with a bucket of popcorn, and old Martin, a fucking maniac, gets on. He's like, Martin, I gotta tell you something, Martin. And little Martin starts running away.
You would think his message is more important than what it ends up being.
Yes, that's what
he's
I'm saying.
so frantically trying to tell him, and he's like crawling through the merry-go-round to get to him because it would have been too hard for him to just come around and jump on that spot.
I know, it's just there's something missing to this story. So it's like one more beat that they never cracked about what's going to make all of this click. But click emotionally. I don't mean like in terms of logic. Just the thing that he needs to be telling his younger self has to be something a little better than what he does.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay because, like I said, when we first started, I'm torn about this episode. I think it's a great episode of something. I don't know if it's a great Twilight Zone episode. And it's because there's no substance. There's not enough. There's not enough juice to squeeze out, and if he had just had a better message, or what, there's so many little things, something unresolved that he finally got to work through as an adult, whatever, but it's just way too simple. Fortunately, as we mentioned, the craft is amazing during the scene. It's just wonderful. The merry-go-round gets, I think it gets like faster and faster as he gets more frantic, and it's beautiful. It's just, again, as we keep saying, I wish he had a better message to deliver. Like, he's so frantically trying to get to his younger self and deliver it, and it's just nothing. At the end, it's just enjoy the merry-go-round. That you just ruined.
And as he chases his younger self off, the younger self falls and injures his leg, and it shouts in pain, and then the old Martin shouts in pain because now his leg is suddenly fucked up. And the carousel stops, and everyone gathers very gravely around the injured boy. And now old Martin explains, I only wanted to tell you this is a wonderful time of your life for you, which you're now going to spend the rest of the summer in the hospital. Don't let any of it go by without enjoying it. But there is this really cool shot. Well, first of all, no one's talking. And that's really eerie, which adds to the dreamlike atmosphere of all of this. They a doctor or whoever comes and picks up the kid and walks off, and then the rest of the people on the carousel also get off and file off, and nobody says a thing, and it's like as if he's on a stage where he is being spotlit.
It's great.
Very, very cool.
It's so good. Which this is like easily the best, like the most Twilight Zone-y 10 seconds, 20 seconds of the episode by far, when the kid hurts his leg and he instantly says, like, I love it how it transfers from childhood to like, this is his new future, and then the everybody, like, nobody's even staring at him really, like, but they're just all silent and get up off their carousel and shuffle off with the spotlight. Oh, it's so great. The cinematography is so good. It's so well shot. It's creepy. It's eerie. Like, when people are just standing and staring silent, after an accident, it's that by itself is eerie. Like, instead of like talking, oh my God, look at that kid. Holy shit. Oh, who was that? What was that guy? They're all just silent, and it's so creepy and easily the best. I love how the pain transfers, the injury transfers through to his adult life. And I love how they're all silent and they shuffle off, nobody says anything. They just shuffle off with the spotlight on him. It's beautiful. It's great.
Yeah. Stuff like that, like, elevates this episode from being like just a straight out bad episode. But yeah, it's now later in the night. Martin is sitting there sadly by himself at the carousel like a freak. And then his father comes up. He's like, hello.
Yeah, and he's kind of a dick. Like, it is odd how cold he is, throughout it. So, I mean, look, his message is valid. So dad comes up and says, look, I went through your wallet. I saw all kinds of identification. Your ID doesn't expire for another 25 years. Your money was printed in the future. I believe that you are my son from the future. But you got to get the fuck out of here because there's only room for one Martin. It's basically his message. And it's like, dude, like, this is your future son who's probably hurting emotionally, who probably isn't that whole. That's why he's sticking around like this and getting so involved. And you're like, I definitely believe you. You're my son, but and I think what he said specifically was summers are only meant for one person. And that person is my current son. So summer's coming up. So you got to get the fuck out of here. You got to go on.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Later. Peace. Deuces.
You're feeling bad. Oh, that's a YP, not an MP. That's a your problem. Go with God. But he does say like, but let me ask you, like, is it really so bad where you're from?
Oh yeah.
And he says like, you know, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm stressed out. I knew I had to come back and ride the merry-go-round. I had to stop and breathe and close my eyes and smell and listen. And his dad says, I guess we all want that. Maybe when you go where you go back, you'll find that there are merry-go-rounds there too. You've been looking behind you, Martin. Try looking ahead. And then he says, goodbye, son. And I think that's really sweet.
Yeah. And then
to imagine that you meet a total stranger who might be literally be older than you, but then decide, no, he is my son. And then to call him son.
Well, I feel like that's an odd amount of emotion and believability in what's going on. Like, I feel like if right now somebody came up and proved that he was my son, even though I don't even have a son, I would be much more invested in what's going on and who he is. And, you know, I wouldn't just give him some sage advice and be like, go on your way.
Honestly, I can totally relate. I feel like this is exactly what I would do. If an adult showed up and said, I am your adult son, I'd be like, I have so much going on right now, man. Can you just, can you try to like figure it out yourself?
I'll give you some nice words real quick, but you gotta do it on your own.
You sound like you gotta it going rough, but I believe in you. All right.
So is it weird or annoying how he says goodbye, son, and then walks away, and then all of a sudden the merry-go-round starts up by itself with like no, like why did it was dead in this picture, and then he says goodbye, son, and walks away, and then all of a sudden the merry-go-round starts, and
because it's the fifth dimension. He's finally learned what this is all about, that it's not about looking backward, it's about I mean, he even says I had to stop and breathe and close my eyes and smell and listen. It's like, you can do that in New York City. They got a Central Park. Go there. And
stop bothering me with your first people white person problems.
No, but like this is like people get nostalgic, and really what it is like life is hard and life is vicious, and we're all working our asses off, and we're stressed out, and we don't have enough money, and we're all competing against each other. And we would like to just stop. Can we just stop and just take a minute? But that's why I think people also get really nostalgic about Christmas, because Christmas is when you are allowed to slow down. But that's also why it feels like it never feels as good as it should, because you're like, this is the time of year where I'm supposed to feel best, and I don't feel as special as I used to feel. And the point is, like, you just can't think of it that way. You literally just have to live in the moment and appreciate what you have, and not in the shitty cliche way, but in the show legitimate gratitude for what you have, and breathe and smell and listen and all of that stuff.
I feel like there's so many very related messages that this episode is trying to give us. Like, on one hand, it's saying you can't live in the past. You know, the past is dead and gone. You have to just accept the present for what it is. But at the same time, I think it's saying that the things that you miss about the past are still there in the present if you want them to be. You know, if you want to appreciate them and see them, they're there too. You don't have to come back in time to see these things. You can live them there. So we're okay with the merry-go-round, just like the ghost merry-go-round starting?
Well, I don't care. Why do you care?
I don't know.
Twilight Zone.
Yeah, but this episode wasn't very Twilight Zone-y. I mean, all he did was just walk into the past, and then everything else was normal.
Yeah, well, again, this is episode 5. It's got to get a lot weirder. If you watch Simpsons season 1, the plot is Homer doesn't get a Christmas bonus. Oh no!
I don't watch the Simpsons season 1.
No, nor should you. Oh, it's fine. But yeah, it's like Homer is embarrassed at the company picnic. Oh gosh, and they have to go to family therapy. Oh,
and they're much more than at the same time. So they're also much more ridiculous with the plots, but they're also much more grounded and too grounded. Like, I hate life in the fast lane. which is season 2, not season 1.
You hate cheaters.
I do.
No, that's season 1, Patrick.
That's season 1, Life in the Family.
Yeah,
okay,
the Jacques episode.
Yeah. And how she's like seriously thinking about going and sleeping with this guy, and she's got to get reminded of all the reasons she doesn't want to do that on the way to going to meet up with him, to fuck with him. Like, I don't like that at all. I fucking hate it. Like, I'd like to think that their marriage is so solid and so perfect that no one can even tempt them to do it. I don't even like Last Temptation of Homer. I think that's too much.
And you told me you don't like a Milhouse Divided because you feel like divorce is too taboo a subject to be dealing with. You have we need to unpack your psychology some other time.
I didn't say it was too much to be dealing with. I said it was too
upsetting.
It was too heavy a subject to take as light as they did. Like when his mom came back, they took that very seriously. It was a very emotional episode with his mom leaving him as a kid and then coming back. They dealt with that very, very beautifully. And then Milhouse Divided, it's just like, haha, fuck you, Milhouse, or fuck Kirk, like, who cares?
But it's because it's Kirk. He's not a real character.
But it's clearly
if Homer was getting divorced, they would treat it more seriously.
But it's clearly tragic for Milhouse. Like, he's acting out and just running his race through shit, and they just don't care about him. And I don't like that. Like, divorce is very, not for me, but for a lot of kids, it's super heavy. Like, it's very
obviously
depressing.
It is for you. That's why you're saying this.
No, when my dad moved literally half a mile away, and I saw both of them every day, and I had 2 houses. So I
know you're saying that, but the fact that you are saying that The Simpsons needs to treat divorce with more seriousness illustrates that you have unpacked feelings involving your mom and dad's divorce, and we're going to get to all of them.
No, I'm just empathetic. I sympathize with all the other people I saw go through that, and I empathize with Milhouse and how they just didn't give a shit about that story at all. So yes, I don't like that episode. I think there's classic jokes.
It is just one of the
Can
best
I Borrow a
episodes
Feeling
ever.
is the greatest song of all time.
Kirk Van Houten is like, I'd say if I break Simpsons characters into A-list, B-list, and C-list. I'd say he's my very favorite C-list character.
But at the same time,
maybe he's D-list.
But I can't stand Luann at all. I fucking hate her. And how she's packing up Kirk's shit and then just pours gas on it and lights it up. And Marge is like trying to be a friend, but she has no idea who the fuck Luann is.
Well, that's a great line, though. You forget everything you knew about Luann Van Houten. She says, well, I don't know anything about you. But it's also, the point is like, she is also a nothing character who before this has had no characterization. Anyway, Martin hops on the carousel and goes back to the future. And next shot is him walking into the drugstore.
Well, I think it's that he went back to the present before he even left the town. Like I thought, like the road was what led him back and forth, was like the time passage. So I thought it was a little odd that he left the carousel and then got to the drugstore, which, last time he was there was in the past and now it's in the present. But
I know, because it would be like, it almost, you feel like, wait, I'm sorry, did I miss something? Did he travel through time when he got on the carousel originally? It makes it seem like the carousel is the key to all of this, but nope,
no, maybe it is. Okay. No, that makes sense because, it's a magical carousel. It's a ghost carousel. It just starts and stops whenever it wants. But
a carousel as a metaphor for time. Time is a wheel, the wheel of time.
Right.
Don Draper in Mad Men gives the famous speech about the carousel. It's a time machine. It's a window into the past.
Well, and I'm glad they didn't spend too much time in the drugstore. Like, we get it. He's back in the present. I'm glad they didn't like spoon feed it to us.
Yes, but he steps back into this drugstore, and now there's music playing on the jukebox, and people are dancing. But because to me, the viewer, 1934 and 1959, I can't really tell how different they are supposed to look from each other. But to people in 1959, they'd be like, oh, there wouldn't be kids doing this in 1934. I tell you, doing the jitterbug or whatever they're doing.
Well, you should know that music itself is the indicator that he's back in the present, because they didn't have.
But it isn't rock and roll.
But they didn't have
rock and roll.
Well, it's not necessarily rock and roll, but it's all they had in the 30s was big band and swing.
Which I thought this was.
Is it? Okay, well then maybe, okay, fuck. All right. But then they just tell us for sure when the thing he orders that was 10 cents is now 35 cents. And then and then he's like, I changed my mind, I don't want that.
But they needed to pay the whatever, the exorbitant fee to get, you ain't nothing but a hound dog playing or something. But yeah, he walks in, goes to the ice cream scoop guy, and he's like, I want 3 scoops. And the guy's like, that'll be 35 cents. And he's like, hell yeah, I'm back where I belong. Great.
But by the way, I don't want that anymore.
Yeah. I've changed my mind. And then Rod Serling monologues. He's like, yeah, Martin Sloan. Sometimes home is not where the heart is, so on, etc.
Well, I'm gonna read the closing narration because I think it's important. I think it's the best indication as to what the message could be behind the story and what we're supposed to take from it, what they intended for us to take from it. Whether it's like we discussed earlier, is it the past is gone and accept the present for what it is, or is it that you could still find childhood things in the present and all the things you miss are still there if you want them to be. Martin Sloan, age 36, vice president in charge of media, successful in most things, but not in the one effort that all men try at some time in their lives, trying to go home again. And also, like all men, perhaps there'll be an occasion, maybe a summer night sometime, when he'll look up from what he's doing and listen to the distant music of the Calliope. I don't know what
Calliope. It's the kind of music you would hear coming out of a merry-go-round.
And hear the voices and the laughter of the people and the places of his past. And perhaps across his mind, they'll flit a little errant wish that a man might not have to become old, never outgrow the parks and the merry-go-rounds of his youth. And he'll smile then too, because it is just an errant wish. Some wisp of memory, not too important really, some laughing ghosts that cross a man's mind that are a part of the Twilight Zone. Which is good. It's beautiful, but also still kind of cryptic, because at first it seems like the point is to remember the things and wish they were still there, but it is just an errant wish, some wisp of memory, not too important really, something that they'll never attain.
To not get so consumed by it, to understand it is there, and that's okay to long for a past, to yearn for a past, but also it's 1959. There's work to be done. You got a job. You got to go to the ad executive agency and do your work, buddy. No one's going to therapy. Everyone grew up with traumatized parents who were drunk all the time and beat the shit out of them. And they're just walking around with all this depression and trauma that they don't have language for. And the only ways they can express it is like, sometimes I think of when I was a child and I get sad. You ever think about that? Oh yeah, I do. But that's as far as it goes.
I think it's really interesting because, he says, all men think about the past, and across his mind, the wish that he'll never become old, never outgrow the parks and the merry-go-rounds of his youth. And then he'll smile then too, because he'll know it is just an errant wish. Why would he smile? Like at the idea, at the realization that it's just an errant wish.
Because you're a man, and a man it's time to put away childish things. And you smile at the fact that you're able to recognize that it's just an errant wish. But he's just talking about himself. He's just hey, I'm a super successful TV guy and I'm writing scripts for the movies. And he's like achieved basically what you can achieve, and he still feels broken and he's wondering why. And again, nobody's on antidepressants. Nobody's going to therapy. That's years and years away. So he'll just have to write stories about wondering why this might be. But it's fascinating. I mean, it's so interesting to think about what they would say about people who construct entire personalities, into their 30s and 40s and 50s around like just living forever in the and again, the brands and the intellectual property that they consumed when they were kids, what they would think about that. So, I mean, final thoughts. I'll just go real quick and say, like, this is a case where talking about the episode has actually made my opinion of it go down when often it goes the other way. I'm going to give this a C+. I'm going to give it a C+. That plus comes from Robert Stevens' direction, the cinematography, which we've praised, the use of lighting, the use of camera angles, but it is let down by a very, very bad script that is just totally half-baked, where they didn't figure out the emotional core, didn't figure out the the possibilities raised by this awesome premise. The awesome idea of, holy shit, I walked into my past life. Imagine the stories we could tell from there. And here's the story you told. Is like, hey, you live your life to the fullest. So also Bernard Herrmann's score is great. But yeah, I think ultimately this is kind of a letdown of an episode.
No, you're 100% right. Like before we got on and I thought you were going to be one of the people, like I was kind of swayed by all the gravitas that other people are giving this episode. Like I said, Time Magazine ranked it 9th best. It's Rod Serling's daughter's favorite episode. Like this is a very highly regarded episode for one reason or another. And when I was watching it each time, because I watched it 3 times before we did this, I thought this is a perfectly fine episode of something else. It's not Twilight Zone, but I kind of take that back. Actually, I think it could have been, if they had just added the smallest things to it, it could have been a great Twilight Zone episode. Even all he needed was a burden he was carrying with him, some trauma that he resolved by going back there, accomplished something by going back there. If it's a child, if you're crippled and because from a child injury and you go back and warn your younger self, even that gives it a B-. If you just stop that from happening, the accident, the car crash from happening, whatever. But there was no agency. There was no motive. There was nothing. He was just there. He didn't try to be there. He didn't want to be there. He was just there and accomplished absolutely nothing, even though he acted like he had something to accomplish. But all he ended up with saying was, hey, enjoy the shit that's around you. Even though a creepy old man just broke your leg. There was no substance to the episode. Great premise. I was super excited because I remember the plot of this episode. I read the plot ahead of time before I watched it. I remembered it. I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. He goes back in time and meets his younger self. All automatically intriguing, but yeah, they just didn't go anywhere with it. They had no direction, no point for anything. And at the end of the day, the whole message was just try to enjoy the little things and be youthful when you can, and it was very weak. And so, yeah, I would also agree that this is a C. I'll just go C. I won't even say C+. I'll say C. Borderline C-. I mean, shit. You know what? Okay. The only thing that's keeping me from giving this a D is the next episode sucks. Yeah, I know. Well, it doesn't suck. Okay, it's a great premise, but again, done very poorly. It's about I'm not going to tell you too much, just the first few minutes. It's about a hypochondriac asshole who makes a Faustian bargain with the devil.
Cool, that sounds fun.
I know, it's my favorite reoccurring character in the Twilight Zone, the devil. Anytime the devil shows up, I'm in when he shows up, and he's portrayed very great. So that saves it too. But
are there any murderers in the cast?
Fuck if I didn't know this guy was a murderer. Shit, that kind of just scared the shit out of me.
Again, it's just like the message is slow down, smell the flowers. It's interesting to look at people in 1959 during, again, this American golden age, the golden age that was always fake, but for a certain sector of people who were a certain color and a certain social class, things would never be better. And they also weren't happy. And that's because the world we have built is not built to make us happy. It doesn't give us the things we actually need, which is friendship and love and community, and to have our material needs met. And instead, this guy's like, I just got to kill myself at the ad agency and get the big accounts. But Martin, just quit your job and get a less stressful job, and you'll be fine. You'll be good.
It's a perfectly fine message, and I'm okay with that, but I just kept waiting for the punch. I kept waiting for the Twilight Zone punch to come in somewhere while he was back there, and it just never came. Again, the craft is amazing. Great score, great cinematography, all that. Just no punch. Nothing happened. It was a great premise that went absolutely nowhere, and it was a big letdown.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so there we have it. A big letdown from Walking Distance. Also a bad title. But again, the titles, they didn't mean anything. It was just something to call the scripts.
Sometimes they're cool. I think 16mm Shrine is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fine. I want to point everybody to Load Bearing Beans, my movie podcast that I host with Lacey Roth, my lovely wife. We have a new episode out every week. This week, well, I don't know when this is coming out. This will be coming out first full week of May, and our episode is on Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof. Patrick appeared on our Patreon, loadbearingbeans.com/Patreon, where we talked about M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening, which is a movie that's kind of a Twilight Zone movie, and we talked about that on the episode at length and talked about somebody has done this with Planet of the Apes, has done like a YouTube edit of Planet of the Apes of putting it in black and white and editing it so it's only 22 minutes, and it plays perfectly as an episode of the Twilight Zone. And I feel like maybe somebody could do that with The Happening.
The Happening was another Twilight Zone episode that went absolutely nowhere.
Yeah,
great premise, starts off awesome, didn't go anywhere.
But there might be like 22 solid minutes in the whole movie. So you can get that episode for $5 a month by subscribing, patreon.com/loadbearingbeans podcast, etc. Patrick and I are part of a band called Rural Route 9. We have an album called The Joy of Averages, and our band does the theme song to the signpost up ahead. The song is called Something Is Coming. Listen to it wherever you hear music. And you can go to ko.fi.com/signpostpod and buy Patrick a cup of coffee, or just give him a tip for all his good work educating the youth of America. Is there anything else you would like to draw people's attention to?
I bought
the Knicks won.
autograph.
Knicks won their series.
Oh, did they win? Okay, good for them. Yeah, I was really disappointed in Golden State. This is my autographed picture of Taylor Swift, just so everybody knows that I got that kind of fuck you money.
I mean, is there any story behind that?
I bought it on eBay. It came with a certificate of authenticity, so it's a authentically autographed picture of Taylor Swift, and it cost too much money for that kind of shit for a picture with a scribble on it. But you know what? I'm a teacher. I got that money.
Patrick contains multitudes. You might think of him as like, this guy's kind of a bro. He's brawling with people on the French metro. He's telling them he's going to kick their ass, but he's a Swiftie, and loves Tegan and Sarah, and also loves Monopoly and cats. So you can't judge a person just by what they do on the French metro. Is a lesson.
I'm a Renaissance man. I really am just the classic Renaissance man.
Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, etc. All the greats.
Who's the fourth?
Michelangelo. He's a party dude.
And don't forget about Splinter.
Can't forget about
the
Splinter.
rat boss.
Again, I think this is when you cut out, but to imagine the people of 1959 to be like, you have no idea the future in store for you. The 45-year-old men who are going to build their entire lives around the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon from the 80s. And they'd be like, nothing that you just said made sense to me. But yeah, we're all just going to be living in perpetual nostalgia for things that ultimately were not even that good. Sorry. Anything else? No. Goodbye, everybody.